we have the pleasure of having Claire, Hannah and Carrie with us, and we sort of think of a theme based around lockdown and micro-adventure sort of crossed together, and how they play a really important part in adventure. And I think sometimes people think of adventures, they've got to be big, they've got to spend loads of time, have loads of kit, whereas actually the ability to have a small adventure that can last half an hour, a couple of hours is just as valid and important. So I've put together a few questions for the young ladies, and I don't know what order you want to go in, or whether you want me to just pick. It's like being back at school. But I thought we'd just start off with just maybe introducing yourselves and kind of what type of adventures you do, so people get a bit of a theme if they don't know you from social media or they've never met you. So should we kick off with you, Carrie? Put you on
yes,
spot,
coffee's just arrived, which is perfect timing. I was like running in here, no coffee, and I thought, how am I going to cope? And that was spot on. Cool. So I'm Carrie. I have been kind of following Adventure Queens for a couple of years now, and discovered them when I went to Yestival, which is where I met Claire, because she fed my husband shortbread at the end of her talk, and therefore bonded for life. So I live in Brighton. Do you want me to talk about what I do, or wait?
Yeah, talk about how you adventure. So, you know, you're from Brighton, you've met me because of shortbread, and yeah. Just
shortbread. Okay, cool. So my micro-adventure is I'm basically walking through every kilometre square, the OS11, the OL11 OS map. So it's the local OS Explorer map. So there's 456 squares, I think, in the whole map. And it started because I was in lockdown like everyone else last March. And by the time it got to about May and we were allowed to go back outside again and do kind of daily adventures and go a little bit further away from your home, I was kind of working out what I wanted to do just to have a bit of a sense of achievement for the year, because all of my plans had gone on hold. I had a big dream of going to Kyrgyzstan. I wanted to walk the Southwest Coastal Path. I wanted to do loads of stuff last year, and it all just got scrapped. So this was how I substituted. So basically was walking one day up at Barkham Mills, which is a reservoir down in East Sussex, and just had the idea to walk in every square. And by the end of the day, it was a thing.
Amazing. How big's the square, just out of interest?
1 kilometre square.
1 kilometre square. So that is a micro adventure.
Yeah.
One square. Amazing.
So I tend to do more than one on each walk. So the idea is I've set up an Instagram, and I'm basically doing lots of circular routes, lots of linear, and then back a slightly different way to try and tick off more squares. So the idea is just to make sure that I've walked through every single one of them over time. And the biggest challenge is actually writing them all up, because I'm writing up every square individually and saying what I saw and where I went, so that other people can follow the routes if they wanted to. But I've got about 30-40 squares in my back pocket that I haven't written up yet, which has become a pressure in itself that I need to just keep posting. But yes, I still enjoy it, so it's good.
Amazing. And so local to home. So that's fabulous. Love it. Thank you. Claire. And obviously we know about Rue, but have a chat. Let us know about you and what you get up to.
Yeah, unfortunately Rue hates swimming, so he just barks at me from the edge if he ever comes with me. I'm absolutely mental most of the time, as do most people, but my thing is swimming. Swimming is my happy place, and I will swim in any given body of water, basically. So rivers, lakes, the sea, anything that's accessible from home. So when lockdown isn't on, I can go a bit further afield and enjoy, maybe cleaner or nicer places. I remember in the summer, I was swimming along in the Avon, and it was on a day that I was meant to be in Ecuador as an expedition leader this summer. And there was a rat running along the edge. And I just thought, this is very similar to scuba diving in Ecuador, I'm sure. But yeah, but still,
scuba diving in Ecuador.
There was a seagull. It was pretty exciting. But yeah, so it's basically just I swim anywhere and everywhere. So which is much to the bane of anybody that's with me. I'm like, ooh, look at that really cold looking bit of water. Should we go and get in? So most people kind of just look at you from the edge like, why would you do that? went for a swim yesterday, and it was actually up in temperature. It was about 5 degrees yesterday. On New Year's Day, it was 1.7. So yes, that's my thing.
I love that in one of your posts you had your expedition leader's bag as your swim bag now. So you're not an expedition Ecuador, but you've got your bag on. So
I got a bag.
The mindset of of a leader, but I'm just walking to the local swamp.
Exactly. It's just the same. It's really, really similar. So, but it's good. It's a really nice community as well. So similar to you guys, a lot of the time you meet people and everybody's quite friendly and you have a chat, and it's more about I don't know if anybody else has struggled with body confidence over the years, talking to a bunch of women, so I'm presuming somebody might nod, but it's very much a kind of, I see it as a very safe space that you can just wear your swimsuit or your bikini, no matter what, and you just get in, you get cold, and then everybody's just, rather than anybody pointing and being like, oh, she shouldn't be wearing that, or he shouldn't be doing this, it's very much, are you okay? Are you warm? Have you got a drink? Do you have a towel? Can I help you? And that's one of my absolute favorite things about it, is the community of people that are also mental enough to swim at this time of year in just their swimsuit. Everybody's just like, okay, don't stay in too long. Don't, it's not a competition. And I'm a very competitive person. So it's a whole new way of thinking about things. And it's actually really enjoyable kind of meeting people. And there was one, sorry, I'm just going to keep talking. Tell me when to stop, Claire, because
tell your story. It's great what you're sharing. It's amazing.
I was in a river, as you are, kind of just swimming along with a friend of mine. And this gentleman walked past, and he had kind of half of his face was covered in tattoos, and and he had this big dog with him and all the rest of it. And he was like, what on earth are you doing? So we started having a chat. And then he was there randomly the next time we were swimming, completely different time, all the rest of it. I don't think he was waiting for us. Started chatting to him again. Then the next time I saw him, I was getting back in my car, and he said, guess what I've done? I was like, what have you done? He was like, I stayed in. I went in the water. I went in the water and I stayed in for a minute. And I was like, yes, go Hank. So and now we've swapped numbers, and now he joins us on swims. And when you kind of just meet the most different types of people, and from all, genuinely half a face of, kind of scary looking tattoos, but he's absolute gem of a human. And you just kind of end up swapping numbers with people. And like, if everybody, it's all about safety and just making sure that you are safe, got, all of the other bits together. But the community that goes with it is wonderful. So
wow. And we were talking yesterday about how seeing posts can inspire you to do an adventure, and I think there's nothing more inspiring than seeing someone doing it and saying you can do this. And so for Hank, probably never thought, he walks there but never thought to get in. No. And now he's like, oh, maybe I'll get in.
He was like, why would I do that? And he was like, I'm determined to get to swim on Christmas Day. I was like, cool, I'll see you. So it was wonderful.
Amazing. Love it. Hannah, would you like to introduce yourself, my dear?
I can. I feel like that's a tough act to follow, but I don't feel like my adventures qualify after all that exciting swimming.
Oh, totally do.
So I'm Hannah. I'm from the Northwest originally, but currently residing in Shrewsbury, which is a lovely part of the world. I met Claire, I think it was almost 3 years ago to the day. Claire, you came up on my Facebook memories a couple of days ago on a hiking weekend in Anglesey. And been friends ever since. So hiking is my thing. I could talk all day long about sort of some of the bigger adventures that I've done, but more recently very much focused on little mini micro hikes, if you like, me and my dog Molly. We've done hiking all over, well, she hasn't been around the world, I have, but more recently very much focused on sort of exploring the local area, sort of finding all of the hidden walks that most people wouldn't naturally find. Over the course of last year, I decided to start sort of tracking the miles and hit 500 last year, which I'm determined to beat this year. I'm a walker, I'm a hiker. There's been a few comments in the chat bar about sort of plus size hiking, and Claire's comment about body confidence, and that was a big driver for me getting into hiking. I'm a plus size girl, determined not to let that hold me back. Actually set up my own little hiking group a couple of years ago to kind of encourage plus size women into hiking and that side of things. So that's me. yeah, I don't know if you want any more at this point, Claire, or is that a starter for 10?
I love at the beginning how you said, I don't qualify, I'm not very adventurous. And you just listed all the stuff you do, including setting up a hiking group. That qualifies to be wow in itself. I think, what breed of dog is Molly again?
So Molly is a Campout. I'm very sad because she's not here today. She's actually on holiday at my dad's at the moment. So I feel like I'll have to introduce her with a little photo. Can you see her?
Yeah. Molly, I've met Molly, and Molly is tiny, and you would never expect her to be the type of dog who would go on a hike. She's this little.
So she's a Campout, Cavalier King Charles cross poodle, who in their right mind thought that a small white fluffy dog was a good idea to be a hiking companion. But she is phenomenal up the mountains. What she doesn't have in size, she certainly makes up for in stamina, and I've been absolutely amazed at some of the things that she's done. So yeah, she's my little hiking buddy.
And she's small enough to fit in your backpack if she does.
Absolutely, yeah. She is.
This is my logic with the Shih Tzu.
She weighs about 5.5 kilos, so if need be, you can carry her fairly easily. She doesn't need it. Like, I thought that would be the case, that I'd need to be carrying her, but she, I mean, awesome.
She's like a little energy rocket. She's just got this thirst for life. She's like about everything, isn't she?
She's very energetic, very enthusiastic, absolutely loves long hikes, and as long as she's near me, she's perfectly happy, and she honestly looks like she's in her element when we're out hiking. So yeah, I think she loves it as much as I do.
Fabulous. You guys have sort of touched on this, but I was just wondering if for me, I think it's really interesting to know how this type of adventure benefits you. Like, what does it give you? So Carrie, I thought I'll go around with the carousel so you can predict when I'm going to ask you the questions, ladies. So Carrie, how do you think doing your square thing has really benefited you?
Yeah, it's benefited me in loads of different ways, actually. When I started doing it, it was just kind of it'll keep me busy, it'll give me something to do, I can't do all this other stuff. But I guess I'd only really started walking solo the summer before anyway. I'd started kind of going out on hikes. I went self-employed 2 years ago, pretty much to the day, and found some free time that I'd never had before. And so on weekdays that I actually managed to have time to myself, I'd go out on a solo walk and sort of started building up my confidence, going up on the downs. So I guess it gave me, doing this project kind of helped me to extend that and give me a reason to get outside as often as I could and get to new places as much as I could. So building my confidence, going outside and doing things on my own, and kind of learning, practicing my navigation skills, and then also just kind of seeing loads of different places that I never even knew existed. Like the other day I went for a walk just at Peacehaven on the seafront. Probably would have never bothered going there before because it's kind of towards the edge of the map, and actually I live in Brighton, so I can just go to the seafront here. But there's like a Greenwich Meridian memorial there that like is on the Greenwich line, and you can go and just kind of be in the middle of everything. And that, I love that, like just stumbling upon little places that you wouldn't know existed. And I found some new woodland up on the hills that I just kind of randomly plotted a route through there, and it wasn't even really much on the map, but it was absolutely beautiful, loads of bracken. So finding new places. And then I guess on the kind of well-being side as well, the way that I walk, and I saw someone asked in the chat about how I record it, and I usually use the OS Explorer app as a kind of GPS so that I can actually have a clear record when I get back in case I take any wrong turns. But then my actual map is covered in lines and lines and lines of highlighter. I don't know if you can see any on there, but everywhere that I've walked I've highlighted, and then each square that I complete I kind of put a little X in the corner in the bottom left and number it, because when I first started I must have done about 80 squares without numbering it, and then I was like, oh, I've got to go and count them all. So basically number the squares so that I've got a record, and I'm up to like, well, I've posted about 130 of the 456, but I've got quite a few to do, as I mentioned. So basically walking in that way and having to be observant and knowing that I'm going to post about each individual square on Instagram as well. As I'm walking, as I'm crossing each boundary line of a square, I'm looking for everything around me. So taking photos of everything, and basically it forces you into a much slower way of walking. In the past, the walks that I've done would be like South Downs Way, belt out 25k, yep, done, get home, eat dinner. Whereas now it's kind of, oh, there's nothing really much to look at. What can I, oh, there's there's a blade of grass, I'll take a photo of that. Or like that's an interesting leaf, or there's nothing but a stile and I'm going to do a whole kilometre on this path and there's really not very much to sort of show and tell. So I have to be really like focused. And in that sense, it's completely changed my style of walking and hiking. So going slowly, being mindful, looking for what's around me. And that really helps with well-being. And I think the rest of my week, like quite often I can spend 9 hours a day on back-to-back Zoom calls with work, just constant meetings, not really even getting breaks. And then I have one of these days where I go out and all of a sudden I'm like 10 gears back and just kind of slowly looking around. Sometimes I'll do like a 4K loop if I've not got a lot of time, or I might do 18K if I've got, and try and tick off 18 squares if I've got a bit longer. So yeah, it's kind of given me a bit more headspace, and just all that time outside in nature. And I deliberately didn't give myself a deadline so that there wouldn't be any pressure to try and rush it and complete it. I can kind of do it in my own time. I've just got to make sure that I don't move away from Brighton anytime until I finish it. So I have to rush a little bit just in case I decide I want to move somewhere. But yeah.
And what I really love about this is I get a sense like you're an endurance type person, because like, you know, you say you belted out the South West Coast Path. But what is lovely is this is kind of an endurance event because it's a lot of squares. But what you've done is inside of that, as the endurance part, you've made it that it can be almost, when you were talking, I think it's very mindful, is that you have to slow down and be present to what you're doing, because you've got this challenge of recording it, which I give you credit for doing that. That's a skill in itself. I do like you've got a paper map, old school paper map. You can't beat the rustle of a real map. But yeah, I thought it was really interesting that it's got so many layers within it. So you could do a big one or you can do a small one, depending on what's going on for you. And as you said, if you've got not very much time, you could even just do a small one, almost like 1K one, but you get the benefits even from doing that, which is what I really like about your challenge, Carrie. It's very cool.
Yeah. It was really good last kind of May, June time. So just after I'd started off, I was even like getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning before work, which like to pick anyone who's got kids, that's like whatever. But I was getting up early, getting out for sunrise and going out, like dragging the husband out of bed, like we've got to go and tick off some squares because it's the only sunny day this week and I want to make the most of the sunrise. So we just like hop in the car and nip like literally a mile down the road to somewhere that I hadn't been before, so that I could get somewhere new. Otherwise walking there I'd use all my time. So like nip off down the road and then do like a little sunrise walk around like Woodingdean or one of the other areas that I've not Saltdean, areas that I've just would never normally have chosen. I'd always end up going to Devil's Dyke or Ditchling Beacon or all the kind of famous landmarks and not seeing all these little pockets of just kind of tranquility that live around the city. Last week we went for a walk through a cemetery because why not? It was the main feature in a square, so it was like, okay, here we are.
They're amazing. I really like cemeteries. I think they're sort of seen as this scary, you know, vampire place, but I think they've got something quite lovely about them.
It was very peaceful.
Yeah. Claire, what do you think how it benefits you? What does it sort of, you touched a bit on it, but you know, now that you've started doing it, it seems like from your post you do it really quite regularly now.
Yeah, so I generally go about 3 times a week, mainly to keep acclimatized with the water at this time of year, because it's cold. But the mental health benefits, I mean, I don't know if anybody's seen in the news recently, there's been a big thing saying about the study they were doing in regards to Alzheimer's and dementia, and the cold water shock protein that can help delay symptoms or onset, etc., of dementia. So there's that, but also just from a mental health perspective, one, the community, the people that you're with, the lack of judgment, all of that kind of side of things is just a wonderful boost. But also when you get into cold water, especially, I mean, it's also wonderful in the summer. You just get a high from being in water and it's really nice and whatever. But when you're in cold water, it switches off kind of your emotional side of your brain. So your body goes into a state of shock, basically, because it's really cold, as I've mentioned. So it turns off your emotional side of your brain. And so when you're in the water and then you get out, that's one of the last bits to turn back on. So all of the sad stuff, happy comes back first. So it's almost this kind of little state of euphoria. And you often find a lot of people are having a good laugh, like a proper like high as such when you get out of the water, because when your body's coming back to life, you're like, oh my God, this feels amazing. So that side of things is just, yeah, it's wonderful. And often you can just be found kind of shivering ridiculously with your Tommy Tippy cup trying to drink your hot chocolate, and but you're all just giggling and laughing away, and it's absolutely, yeah, it's a wonderful feeling. So yeah, there are proven things that says there is an addictive quality to it. So yeah, it's like with any exercise as such, but in a different kind of way. So
wow, it's like a free high.
exactly. Yeah, you just have to get very cold.
And you wouldn't get a hangover, so that's really positive, isn't it? So, you know, instead of having too many glasses of vino for a high, have a dunk in some cold water.
Exactly, it is wonderful. And that's why, so you know, when you kind of see in films or whatever and people splash their face with cold water, it's because it does kind of shut down the emotional responses that you have necessarily. So yeah, it's just one of those, that's why people kind of, there's lots of research into cold showers and all of those kinds of things.
Yeah, I've seen that about, and they say like to have 1 minute of your shower just on really cold to make.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't do that, that's mental.
I love you're getting a dirty swampy lake, but you won't do the cold shower.
Exactly, if I'm in a quarry, not a problem, but a cold shower,
it's not happening.
Yeah. But I think one of the other things as well is it's so accessible. There is water everywhere, and do be careful about where to swim, etc. And I know a few people have asked comments in the chat, which I can go into in a minute, but you need a swimsuit. You don't need lots of gear. Like, you know, there's the dry robe club, which lots of people have dry robes, and that's great. And I bought one and I really didn't like it. So instead I made my own robe, which like, I just find it, if anybody has, basically you just need 2 towels, and it has its own hood, and you've got your armholes, and you basically just put this over your head.
Oh wow!
Armholes, and it's great. And that cost, you know, a tenner with 2 towels and my sewing machine. So you don't need a lot of stuff to do it. And I think that just makes it, because I'm one of those kind of hobby collectors, and I will have all of the gear for everything. And this is actually my favorite thing, is because you just need a swimsuit, a towel, and I mean, I have pretty hats that I buy as well. But yes, apart from that, like it just seems, it's a leveler. So kind of from the mental health kind of perspective and the like boost that you get, it just kind of, like I've said, you know, like Hank, for example, and it kind of builds relationships with people very quickly, because you're slightly vulnerable when you're half naked and, you know, really, really cold next to a river. So yeah, it's a really nice kind of safe, secure environment a lot of the time. And the relationships that you build through that kind of just develop not very quickly, but, you know, just in I don't know, you have that shared slightly mental probably part of the brain, which meant that you did it in the first place. So yeah.
I can imagine it just breaks down back. There's no barriers, because as you say,
Yeah.
when you're slightly exposed, because you're exposed to the elements, but you're exposed because you're not in much clothing, and you're doing something that to most people seems quite bonkers. That's really bonding. I can imagine friendships, relationships build really quickly, because there's no, oh hi, my name's Claire, and what do you do for a living? That doesn't matter in that space.
None of that. Yeah, it's like, my name,
magical,
are you okay? Are you warm enough? Do you have a hot drink? No. Yeah.
Amazing. Hannah, what about you? Sort of, what have you found that from doing your hiking and setting up your group, how it's sort of benefited you?
Massively. Like, I'll probably sound like I'm repeating a lot of what Claire said, but huge benefits. Like, I can't kind of even start to explain it really. I mean, I work long hours, I have a pretty stressful job, and I find it really hard to switch off from work. And I think ever since I started hiking, I realized that actually I needed that. Like, before I started hiking, it was just work all the time. And for me, it's one of the only times I completely switch off from work. I tend to like to turn my phone onto airplane mode, not off completely because I need it for photographs. But I tend to try and ignore my phone as much as possible when I'm out. And the benefits, both from a obviously physical point of view, is the obvious one, but the mental benefits for me are huge. Not just because the kind of escape from work and you're kind of forced to, you know, you're focusing on map reading, a bit like Harry was saying before, you know, when you're navigating on a map, you kind of naturally slow down, and it's more, you know, you get lost in the map a little bit. But also the friends I've met along the way, and the relationships that you've developed off the back of that, and you know, I have days out hiking with the group that I walk with, and you literally laugh. There's laughter from the start of the day to the end of the day, and it's better than therapy. In my mind, people pay an awful lot of money for therapy. You don't need to go walking. Find some friends and go walking. So yeah, for me, it's a really important part of my life, which is why, you know, lockdown was really tough at first for me. I mean, yeah, Claire's my friend on Facebook and probably saw some of the posts early on. I was kind of really like, oh my God, this is like somebody's taken away my lifeline to lock me down and say I can't drive to Wales and climb a mountain. That's taking away a lifeline for me. And hence why I threw myself last year into kind of mini hikes, because I couldn't have done nothing. Like, it would have been really detrimental sort of mentally for me. So yeah, it's had a massive benefit. Can't underestimate it. And as I say, absolutely determined last year that I wouldn't let lockdown lock me down. Just had to change what I was doing a little bit and change the focus a little bit. But yeah, it's massive benefit.
What's interesting is lockdown changed your adventures, but you still had them and actually found new stuff. And it's a bit like Carrie was saying, like things you just don't know that are close to your house. And because probably like you, Claire, you've probably had to look for water closer to home, because we can't all be traveling places suddenly. And it'd be interesting when lockdown ends, that drive and thrill to go longer distances, will that always be there? I think we all have that, but actually, you know, you've got things on your doorstep now. So suddenly it's like, haha, I can get that buzz, that thrill, that, you know, well-being feeling actually not far from my
you don't have to go far. And one of the things a lot of my friends ask me is like, how do you know where to go? Like, if you're not a regular walker, if you've never read a map before, it can be quite daunting to kind of figure out, well, you know, where do you go? It's one thing sort of walking out your front door and going around the block, but you know, that doesn't excite me particularly. So I mean, I'm a big fan of books that, you know, walking books that give you walking routes, and then off that I sort of overlay it onto a map, and you might kind of, you know, vary it up a little bit. But you know, I up until sort of recently was living on the Wirral, and I bought a couple of books which was literally like Wirral circular walks and local Wirral walks and stuff, just to inspire me or kind of prompt my thinking. And as I say, I'd then look at a map and maybe shake it up a little bit. But I think that's one of the things that people find really hard, is kind of where do you go? Like, how do you find these routes? But you know, everyone thinks that you need to, you know, be a seasoned map reader and that you need to be able to navigate properly. You don't. There's some great resources out there just to kind of, that are literally kind of step-by-step instructions on where to go and how to get there, and that's where a lot of my walks have come from.
Which leads me really nicely onto my sort of kit question, because Claire's shown us her homemade dry robe. Dry robe's about £100. Claire shows you that you can do it for about a tenner. Carrie, do you have a favourite piece of kit? Because we all love kit. We're all a bit obsessed with kit in the adventure world. Do you have anything that you wouldn't go out with on a walk, even if it's a short one? Is there something that's always with you that you find really valuable?
So I don't always take them, but the thing that I bought in the last year, which has been an absolute game changer for me, is hiking poles. I'm like 36, and I thought that I had to be like 70 to have hiking poles. And I went to, last Christmas, I was really fortunate, just before all of this chaos happened, I went to Patagonia, and I did quite a lot of long hikes in Patagonia, and I bought poles for that trip. And I was, all of last year, the previous year, when I first started doing the longer walks here, I was getting loads of hip pains. And I'm hypermobile, so all of my ligaments go a little bit further than they should, and I get quite a lot of joint pain, which has been a bit of a challenge for me in the past with being able to do things that are endurance at all, because I just end up the second day two, I'm destroyed. So I bought these poles, and they're like collapsible ones. And I've been out, like with those, I can walk for hours and hours and hours and not really feel much pain at all. It makes sure my posture is better. I'm not leaning forward if I'm carrying any kind of pack. Like, yeah, game changer. And now I'm like, I don't care if people think that I'm too young to have hiking poles, because they're awesome. So
you're out doing it. If they pull faces, that's their thing. And yeah.
And they make you feel a bit like a spider when you're walking as well, which is always fun. Like, you know, feeling like an arachnid.
They're good for opening gates now that you can't touch stuff as much.
Yeah. And if there's a big puddle where your style is, you can use them to kind of like jump over, which is always fun too.
And when it's
A jumping
icy,
spider on your walks. I've got whole new images of you now, Carrie, when you're off out doing your adventures.
and when it's icy, they give you a whole new balance. I mean, we could talk all day about the benefits of hiking poles.
Yeah. You get to a big puddle and you can only walk down the left-hand side, and normally you'd be like, oh, I've got to hang on to like barbed wire or like the hedge, and instead you just put your poles on the opposite side and off you go. So yeah,
Crawling across
highly recommend.
You're preaching to the converted already. Yeah.
I think it's, and I think that's the thing, isn't it? And I think what's coming across from all of you is that sort of perception of what people might think, and actually this is just breaking through it. So whether it's body shape, what you're doing, like you've got hiking poles where you're there with your towel and your funky hat on, is actually going, do you know what? I'm being me, I'm doing what I love and what benefits me, and I'm going to plow through what people could be about it. Claire, I asked Claire, would she bring one of her funky hats?
Funky
There
hat.
she is.
I love my hats, but then I often find that I'm driving home in them and people are looking at you and you're like, oh God, that woman's mental. I'm like, why are they looking at me singing along in the car or something? But yeah, no, the hats are the best bit. So
Would you say that's your sort of favourite piece of kit at the moment?
it's definitely my favorite piece of kit. My safest piece of kit is my phone holder. So just my waterproof phone holder. So like safety first with any kind of, I think with most activities, etc. With swimming especially, like always go with somebody if you can. But yeah, your phone holder. If you get into trouble, you want to be able to use your phone. Like if it means that you're the wrong side of the water, it means, you know, whatever situation you're in, it gives you a light, it gives you contact, etc. So that's my.
And is your phone holder, is it something on your wrist or is it around your neck? I
generally wrap it around my wrist. It's got a lanyard attached, and then just have it in my hand. And it was just it wasn't expensive. It was just on Amazon. They come in nice colours. There's a teal one and a pink one. So it goes very nicely with the hat. But yeah, that's my, I mean, also it means that you get to take your photo when you're in the water, which, you know, it didn't happen unless you have a photo, obviously. If anybody's seen my Instagram, it's pretty much pictures of me with a ridiculous smile on my face, which only comes through swimming. But yeah, so hats, the more extravagant, the better. And and a waterproof phone case.
And before I forget, I'll say this, is if you ladies want to put in the chat where people can follow you and you're happy for people to pop it in, because all your adventures to people are getting inspired, or if it's okay if people want to ask more questions. And I'm going to ask one more question of the girls, and then I'm going to open up because there's lots of things in the feed that are twittering along. So Nicola and Caroline, I'm giving you the heads up now. I'm going to ask a couple more questions, maybe even one, and then we'll do your questions because there's lots of them. Hannah, favourite piece of kit?
So I'm going to pick two, one for me and one for Molly, if that's okay.
That's totally okay.
So favourite piece of kit for Molly, anyone who's got a dog, if you, so something called Equifleece, which having a small white fluffy dog on hiking adventures invariably ends up with a small dirty black dog by the end of the day. She also gets really, really cold. So she gets cold very easily, she gets hot very easily. Equifleece is like an all-in-one fleece suit for the dog, and it's brilliant. It's like water repellent. She comes out clean apart from her little tiny muddy paws that stick out the bottom of it, and it is an absolute game changer. So yeah, if you've got a dog and you get a particularly dirty dog or cold dog, Equifleece is literally a game changer. And for me, it would have to be my thermos coffee cup. So whether I go out for 2 hours or whether I go out for the whole day, the thermos coffee cup must be with me. And there's nothing better than stopping somewhere along the way with a nice view and literally just having a coffee and preferably a bit of cake and taking in the view. So yeah, Equifleece for Molly and coffee cup for me. I'm sure there's lots of far more essential items that I should be talking about, but I'm going to go for those two.
There's no
favourite. I didn't go for most practical, and I do. And the Equifleeces come in different colours. So has Molly got like an outfit? You know, she can have a pink one or a green one and a red one or whatever.
She's got a couple. You know, she favours a maroon one. She looks particularly good in. So I'll see if I can dig out a photo of that one as well. But yeah, all sorts of shapes, sizes, colours, designs, all sorts of things. They're brilliant.
So having a dog is actually, because we are all about kit and we like kit and we like buying kit, you get to have two kit collections. You get a dog kit collection and a human kit.
Molly's kit takes more consideration than my own. I mean, sometimes I go out and I realize that I've forgotten half of what I need, but she's well kitted out. You know, whether it's for drinking bowls and snacks for her and different leads and harnesses and all sorts of things. Yeah, it's a whole different world, dog kitting for hiking.
She just has the best life. That dog is so lucky that she gets to have this adventurous life. Lots of dogs just sort of walk around the block. Your Molly is like experiencing so much. So yeah, if she could talk, we could have her. She'd have all sorts of adventure.
Yeah, she was particularly spoiled when she was a tiny puppy, and she used to get carried to the top of these mountains because she was too small to walk them. So yeah, she's done some pretty awesome stuff, either being carried or walking.
I don't know if your dog
look at her. She looks like a little princess who wouldn't do that. So that's what's amazing about her. Absolutely brilliant. I love it.
If your dog is anything like mine as well, do you find that even if you don't have the kit for the dog, you give them your kit?
Oh, absolutely.
My dog was cold when we were on Dartmoor. So he had my coat. I was like, well, you need it more than me. It's fine.
Oh my gosh, hilarious.
Yeah.
I just wonder if anyone's had any quirky, you were talking about, you met Hank, which was an interesting experience. Carrie, have you had anything like story that's, those story worthy that would be definitely your Instagram post that on your adventure, something really unexpected to happen that's just really stuck with you?
I don't have one that's like funny, but I have a cute one, which was that I was out walking one day, and it was a longer walk. It was about 18k in total, but I was about 9k in, and at the kind of turning point, I managed to take a wrong turn and walk around this field that had loads of cattle in it that I'd gone through a gate that I shouldn't have gone through. And then I found my way back and I was like, okay, I'm fine. But as I was finding my way back, there were also loads of baby goats, so kids in the field. And they basically were the cutest animals. And they just were like chasing me across the field. And I was like, a tiny bit afraid of them because they were quite ferocious, but they were just super cute. And it's like one of those things that wouldn't have happened unless I'd taken the wrong turn. So it was just a nice thing to remember. And of all the photos on Instagram, it's one of the ones that like loads of people love. And it's just this really cute kid looking through the fence at me as I was trying to leave the field, because it was like, don't leave. They just wanted to play, but it was really cute. I liked it.
That's just perfect. And that's that sort of when you walk the wrong way, you could really beat yourself up and went, I've gone the wrong way. But actually, sometimes that's where the magic really happens, when it's not in the plan. Lovely. Claire, what's happened that is rememberable for you in your many jumps in water?
I think so. It is the things like meeting Hank, like seeing the rat on the day that I was meant to be flying to Ecuador, and kind of stuff like that. But I think the memorable moments are the ones where, say, like at Clevedon Lake, for example, there's a marine lake and there's two nice sets of steps down one end, but it was quite busy. So I was like, you know what, it's fine. I can hoik myself out of the water afterwards and just jump onto the side. Turns out when you're numb all the way through, it's harder to do so. So having watched one of my friends sitting on the side, legs akimbo, he lifted my other friend basically onto his lap, which was, just quite entertaining watching from when I was in the water, like, ha, this is ridiculous. Why can't you even get out? And then trying to get out myself, where all of a sudden you're kind of trying to push up and you realize that you can't feel your hands to feel where the side is particularly. And you don't have enough kind of control over the rest of your body to jump. And you kind of get to this stage where you think you're on the side, but you know that you could easily slip back into the water. So rather than falling back in the water, I just rolled backwards. So lying on the side of the lake, like legs in the air, kind of just sprawled out over the edge, but in absolute hysterics. And people just walking past. I'm there with my hat and my swimsuit on, you're all right, there's steps over there. I'm like, yep, got that, thank you. So just those kinds of moments, really. It's the really simple things. I
love that, because it's that whole, again, that sort of, people could be really self-conscious and like, what will people think of me? And I love the bit when you said, and I was laughing, because it's just like, it is what it is. I've done this amazing thing. I'm now just got to get out. It's not working.
Yeah. And so, I mean, on New Year's Day, for example, so I probably stayed in a bit too long, and there's lots of advice out there on how long you should stay in the water and acclimatizing, etc. So don't take it lightly. But I was getting back out of the water and I realized that I couldn't feel my straps. So luckily, obviously, I've got my armholes in my thing. My friend had helped me on with my towel, And then she was getting dressed, so I asked her boyfriend, I was like, excuse me, can you just take my straps down, please? It's like, I can't do it. So yeah, it just becomes, you know, a nice little community of people helping each other. So yes, great.
I'm wondering how many people are now going, I really want to go and have a go at this. I know I definitely do, because there's research about helping with pain, that people who have pain and injury, that shock factor is really good.
Definitely, and after exercise, etc. So, you know, in the same way that, you know, you always see kind of rugby players having ice baths, there's definitely muscle repair benefits to being in cold water as well. There's lots of resources. I'm just going to say, because I don't know if there will be other questions, but people have been asking a lot about how to find out where you can swim or whatever. There's the Outdoor Swimming Society, which is brilliant. There's a group called Blue Tits, which also has lots of regional groups. Like you were saying, Hannah, books. My favorite ever book is this one, 2000 Wild Swims, by a lovely man who, when I ordered it, he then phoned me to have a chat about the book. And it's got all sorts of places around Europe, like, but then also just the different regions in the UK. But there's loads of things, kind of just people suggesting places, saying, you know, asking for somebody to go along with, all of those things, because obviously at this time of year especially, or any time of year, especially after rainfall, etc., just take it seriously, but also have obviously a wonderful time. But yeah, if you can go with somebody, even if it's somebody that just wants to stand on the side and take pictures and laugh at you, that's great. Like, it's not a problem, but just don't push yourself too much. So yeah.
Great advice. Hannah, memorable story with Molly?
Memorable stories with Molly. I mean, there's lots. I mean, I think some of the funniest ones from last year generally involved cows. So prior to lockdown, a lot of my walking was mountainous, and you don't tend to come across that many fields full of cows. Last year, doing a lot more sort of closer to home and sort of walking through fields and things, I seemed to come across an awful lot of cows and discovered that I actually have quite a big fear of cows, which I didn't know about myself. Molly also has a fear of cows, as you can imagine, because she's so tiny and she sees them and panics a little bit. So, I mean, the one story that stands out, I was doing a section of the Sandstone Trail in Cheshire last year, and sort of came across the field, which was I had to go through. I was sort of an hour or so into the walk and I had no other option to go through this field, but there must have been about 40 small baby cows in this field, and I kind of stood there at the stile, Molly's kind of whimpering behind me like, don't make me go in there, mum. And I'm standing there thinking, what do I do? Like, I've got to go through or I have to go back. So I decided to conquer my fear. So I've got Molly under one arm, climbing over a stile into this field. I was absolutely terrified because I don't like cows. And it turned into like a scene from the Pied Piper, where I literally ended up crossing this field with all of these cows following behind me. So I've got this hilarious video because I had to film it. That they were very friendly, they were very nice to me, but they were all following me across this field. So I'm getting more and more nervous because they're like trotting along behind me. There's literally about 40 of them. Molly scooped up under one arm like the princess that she is. But yeah, we came out safely the other end, but lots of fairly nerve-wracking cow moments.
But did you have like that really sense of achievement when you got to the end? Like, I did that. I stood there at that side going, I'm not doing it. Me and Molly scooped her up. And then at the other end, there must be a bit like Claire on the side when she rolled out, like, yay, I did it, I'm out. Absolutely.
And I'd say I get that sense of achievement every time I've done a new walk. So sort of slight change in conversation, I suppose, but it's one of the things that I love about kind of exploring the local area and stuff. Like, you get to the end of it and there are times where you think, oh God, I'm lost, or, you know, I'm out of my depth in terms of navigating, or it's too muddy and it's horrendous, or there's a field full of cows or whatever it is. And you get to the end of it and it's, you know, they're each one of those walks is a little achievement in itself. So yeah, you get a real sense of kind of achievement and pride, I suppose.
It makes me want to go have a microadventure today now. I'm thinking, oh, where can I go this afternoon? What can I do? I'm not sure it's going to involve water though, Claire, but I have started to think if there's local water places to dunk. But like you said, I feel I'd want to go with some people even if I don't know them, but some people who know what they're doing to start with, because I think you can't, especially this time of year, you can't take it lightly, and doing it somewhere safe and for a very short period of time. I might start with a shower first, just start with a cold shower and see how I get. I would go with that.
I went with the first timer yesterday for my swim, and it's funny because I mean I was there like I really wanted to go further and I wanted to do stuff, but very much it was like, okay, he's been in, this is what he's doing now, is he still talking okay? Right, I think it's probably time for you to get out. I'm then going to crack on. But if you can now get dressed quickly, if you can do this, put your hat on, you know, top half first, layers, have a drink, I'll be with you in a minute kind of thing. So yes, but people in like these groups that I've mentioned about, so the Blue Tits is a great one, Outdoor Swimming Society, and then also lots of, if you have a wonderful resource near you, so near me, but too far for during lockdown, but there's places like, there's a Lake 32, Cromhall Quarry, there's another place I can't think of the name of, but they all have their own Facebook groups, Instagram groups, etc., which are really great for people just saying, I'm going, is anybody else going at the same time? Could we meet up? Could we be safety swimmers, buddies, etc.? So it generally, you know, you will find somebody else that wants to go. I mean, use your common sense as well. If they, you know, if they seem strange, like, you know, don't just give out your number to anybody. But yes, all of those things. I have just found the picture as well from that fateful swim. So this was before I got out of the water, and I don't know if you can see my friends' faces of just how cold they were, and I'm there laughing at them currently from in the water until then I got out of the water, and then they were laughing at me. Yes.
Well, it was shared laughter. It was communal fun.
Exactly.
I could listen to you guys all day. I think you've got so many sort of common stories, but with your own theme of where and how you're adventuring. But I'd really like to let the other adventure queens ask their questions. So Nicola, Caroline, what questions have been popping up and what themes are popping up from people?
There's just a lot of chat and support for wild swimming and hiking and apps that you can use. So there's a lot of chat going on, but not very many direct questions. There is one for Hannah, and I think you're the one with the dog.
I am indeed.
Cockapoo. So Ivy says, would you like a dog sitter? I think we're all thinking that, and I'd like to volunteer as well. And also, I think this one is for you as well, Hannah. How do you source, or do you have any advice for clothing that's suitable for plus size?
Yeah, it's a really good question, which actually comes up surprisingly a lot. So I guess when I first got into hiking, like it's tough. Like a lot of the mainstream brands kind of go up to a size 16 and not much further. So it can be quite daunting if you're bigger than a size 16. But there are brands out there. There's a lot of good kits. So the likes of Go Outdoors and places like that. There are brands that do bigger sizes, but also like don't worry too much about it being branded. So like the one brand that I found great was Regatta. So they do much bigger sizes for yeah, I mean, they do a whole range of kit, and actually it's really, really good kit. It's not so expensive. So they were sort of my go-to, I suppose, early on. But there are brands out there. Some of the kind of own brand stuff in Go Outdoors especially tends to do bigger sizes, but also like I used to really struggle to find like hiking trousers. So I adopted hiking leggings, which are so much more versatile and so much comfier, and you can tend to get them in all different sizes. So I use a brand of leggings called Element Carbon, which are brilliant and do all sorts of sizes and things. So there is kit out there, and I'm happy to share more stuff on the group afterwards in terms of a few links and that side of things. But also like I found when I first got into it can be a little bit snobbish in terms of kit. So especially if you join some of the walking groups and things, people are very like, it's got to be branded, it's got to be the best, this, that and the other. Forget it. Like, as we've already said, like this is about you getting out there, giving things a go. Like who cares what you're wearing, or as long as you're comfortable and you're warm and you're dry, like don't get hung up on it being the mainstream brands and that side of things. So
yeah, that's brilliant advice.
I think another one is Mountain Warehouse.
Yes, it's a really good call actually.
And Mountain Warehouse was one of the only places I found. They kind of go up to, I think, 26 roughly, I think. But with like, so some of my coats, kind of you get your padded jacket or whatever, and you try on your Paramo jacket and you're like, oh, well, this isn't made for me. So you're like, I'm going to go back to Mountain Warehouse and just, and the thing is as well, is it's not about your brand or whatever. And I get nice badges that you can put over the logo if you're worried about things. because badges are cool. Yeah, so lots of things I've managed to get from there. You just
I love the badges idea. That's great.
Yeah.
I actually lost the chat because I got kicked out, so I'd only made a note of a few. But was there anything else, Caroline, that you spotted?
No, I think, as you said, most of it's chat. There's lots of chat about walking poles and recommendations if people want to flip through it, and various bits of swimming chat. I think 2 of the girls have put their Instagram tags on the chat, but I think Carrie may not have done yet.
I put it maybe higher up, but I can post it again.
Okay, and somebody asked for the link to Hannah's walking group as well, if you're happy to stick that on there.
Yeah, more than happy to share it. So things are on hold, obviously, for obvious reasons at the moment. So I haven't really done much in 2020, but I will be getting it back up and running at some point. So I'll share the details. I run it through Facebook. So, I mean, it's a very inventive name. I came up with Hannah's Hikers. So.
How did you come up with that?
I mean, it was tough, Claire. It was really tough.
I remember when I met Hannah, and that was a day when it was pouring with rain doing this hikey walk thing.
It was.
Oh, and I'm not naturally a hiker, so I was like, flipping heck, why is it raining so much? And I remember you were just starting up your hiking group and you were really nervous about it and people coming, but actually it's just grown from strength to strength, hasn't it?
Yeah, and do you know what, that kind of incorporates a few things that we've talked about. So yeah, when I first met Claire, I'd just come off the back of a really tough year. So I'd come out of a crappy relationship and I also had a really bad back injury, unfortunately not from an exciting hiking adventure, but from simply slipping over by a swimming pool on holiday. So I'd had a really rough year. I'd put on a lot of weight, was feeling really, like, confidence was absolutely rock bottom. And I wanted to get back into hiking. I wanted to hike with a group. But for all the reasons that we've talked about on here, like I wasn't confident joining one of the mainstream kind of hiking groups because it just felt like I wouldn't be fit enough. I wouldn't be, wouldn't have the right gear, wouldn't know what I was doing. So I made the decision to start my own up and kind of started it up thinking I might find 1 or 2 friends to kind of join me on the odd walk occasionally. And I set it up and within about 2 days, I had sort of 60, 70 people join. And then there's probably been a core of about 20, 25 people that we've now been hiking regularly together for the last 3 years, I would say. And that's been great because it's literally been like we hike at the pace of the slowest person in the group and there's absolutely zero pressure to do anything fast or crazy. The group's massively supportive. The banter and the laughter that we have along the way is just amazing. Literally, I think I met you, Claire, as I say, it was 3 years ago, almost to the day, and I'd set it up in the January. So yeah, it was about the same time. And who knew at that point where it would go? But it's been a really cool few years. Just a shame, obviously, last year it sort of dropped off a cliff a little bit, but it will be back, bigger and better.
I'm sure that when the world opens up again, everyone will be keen, and I have a feeling your group is going to grow and your core people will be there and they've probably shared it with others. And so, yeah, you're going to be a nice big army of people tromping around mountains, hills, slopes.
Absolutely.
Which is going to be exciting. And I suppose I'm just watching the time and I just wondered if for you guys, when the world does open up some more, do you, like you were saying, Claire, about Ecuador, is there something that you're thinking of doing? Obviously the local stuff I'm sure will still continue, but what are your plans? Do you have plans, or are you just in that I'm in lockdown, I can't think about plans yet?
I mean, this year, so when I couldn't go to Ecuador, I bought myself a camper van, which I've been wanting to do for a long time. So now I have a 30-year-old Talbot Express called Pearl. She is also on Instagram. My main thing is I want to go away, don't tell the cat, but without her and the 2 dogs, and just kind of go absolutely everywhere and anywhere, and almost I'm kind of using this book as my inspiration, Back to This Guy,
right?
2000 Miles Swims, and just kind of go through each of the chapters and find new places to swim, because every time I get in the water, it makes me happy without fail. So if I can just kind of work my way around the UK and, then Wales and Ireland and all the rest of it, just kind of follow a random route of water to water, then that's my kind of next step because I feel like international travel is going to be a bit stunted for a while. So yeah, me in the van with the dogs. Done.
Well, when it opens up enough, you will have to find one near me, Claire, and then you can be my supportive buddy when I'm standing at the side going, I do want to do it.
I'll bring you a spare hat.
Yes. Or I might have to invest in a hat. I love a hat. So I haven't got a hat. So this
and
can be
It's
my new
supporting
hat.
small businesses. So
Well,
that
I
was
will
my
find one on
friend
Etsy
too.
or somewhere. I'll find an independent swim hat maker.
Yeah.
Oh, this is a whole new line of hats. My friend Zoe's on this chat, and she knows that when we do Christmas markets in Europe every year, we had to sadly postpone last year's one. And pretty much on every trip, I'm like, I need a new hat. I need a new hat. So I have an ever-growing hat collection from around Europe. So
Amazing.
hats opens up a whole new avenue for me, which just already I'm thinking after this call, oh, I might have to go look for a swim hat. And Hannah, what about you? Because I know you are epic adventurer of not just local. Which ones are brewing for you that you'd love to do first when we're allowed to?
Was that to me? Sorry, Claire.
Yeah, for you, Hannah.
So for me, you said as things on hold in lockdown, or do you like? I love to plan, so I love to have things to look forward to. And last year, pre-COVID, I set myself a 2020 challenge of climbing 20 new mountains in 2020, which didn't go very far. So I ticked off 3 before the world shut down. So hopefully, if you know, things get lifted in the relatively near future, I'm going to resurrect that challenge and do 21 mountains in 2021. So I've started, you know, mainly sort of Wales, Lake District, hopefully up to Scotland. But I'd really love to get that challenge completed, because once I've set myself a challenge, I do like to see it through. So it'll just need revamping for 2021.
And Hannah is another owner of a camper, and it was spookily when I last saw her. She was trading in one for another, and she was like, do I buy this bigger one? I don't know what to do. Shall I do it? I'm like, just go, just do it, just buy it.
Yeah, no, exactly. Just bear with me. Sorry, somebody's at the door. Really bad time. Oh, sorry, a second.
Yeah, so the cheek, so there's a camper with a dog like you, Claire. So there's a little community. Carrie, what about you? What's on your adventure plans when the world opens up?
I still want to get back. I still want to do the Southwest Coastal Path. So I've almost finished the South Downs Way as well, but I've done that as kind of stage hikes on weekends when I've managed to get a couple of days together. And I've got one last section to do, which is from Cocking to Winchester, but it's just a bit too far to, well, most of the area is too far to travel in lockdown, but it's at the moment, I didn't get around to finishing it last year. So I want to finish that. And then I want to start doing Southwest Coastal Path. So I've got a date in April with one of my friends to do the first leg from Minehead for a week. But we're kind of optimistically hoping, and we've got a pact that regardless of what happens, we'll keep moving the date if we have to, but we'll do it. So we said we'd try and do a section together, like even if we do it over 10 years, we're going to try and do the Southwest Coastal Path. So yeah, just keep walking different places and then try and finish this project first.
It's really interesting. It's like you've all got projects, and what you're doing now fits into your projects. And then what's lovely is as the world opens up a little bit more, you can just spread your projects further and further. But it's lovely that there's a core sort of, it's almost part of who the 3 of you are being. It's almost, if we cut you down the middle like a stick of rock, it's who you are. That your adventure, that's part of who you are, and it not defines you, but it's a really core to who you're being. And it just sounds like it just keeps that stability in your lives, and then you might have to step away from it because of lockdown, but you create a way of keeping it going, but in a different way, which is just amazing, and it's really inspiring. I haven't had the urge to go out walking anywhere for a while, so this has got me going. And yes, Claire, I think the hats, definitely. Someone's asked me, where do I get Claire, where's your favorite go-to place for hats?
I've popped a link up there. There's a lady called Katie Makes Stuff, which is the bathing bonnets, and she'll make them. You basically say what you would like and she makes it. So yeah, there's a one-off as well. Every single one is one-off, so it's great.
Amazing. I'm sensing a Adventure Queens meetup, because I don't know if anyone's really done many of those, and I think wild swimming has become like quite on trend. I think paddleboarding had its day, and I think wild swimming really seems to be stepping up as something, and especially in colder times. So I'm interested when the world opens up, if we'll see more groups. And if people are interested, and I don't know, Claire, if you'd ever arrange one in your area with the local queens to do, because you're so experienced now, it would be amazing to do that. Fantastic. Caroline, Nicola, any final questions, comments for our lovely ladies? And then we can let everyone off and get into adventures. Claire, where are you swimming today, by the way?
Woolard, so just down the road. Yeah, there's a river there, and it wasn't raining too much yesterday, so it should be okay. And there's a nice little swoosh that you kind of go around and just do little loops. It's nice. If they've turned the power up, you know, they forget to turn the heating on every time, but yeah. It's great.
Love, there's a little swoosh that adds the extra zhuzh for it today.
Exactly.
I love it, absolutely love it. Caroline, Nicola, any final comments, questions?
No, I think you've got it all, to be honest, and the girls have been quite good at answering in the chat as well if people want to flick through there. So yeah, I think you're all good. Amazing.
Well, Hannah, Claire, Carrie, thank you so much for being here with your coffee on a Sunday morning, sharing. I'm personally feeling just from listening to you, let alone doing these experiences, and it's really great to hear. And I think you've touched on so many different things, not just about the adventures, but just that sort of perception of body size and, you know, image and branding and all those things that I think can sometimes be barriers for people. And actually what's amazing is the three of you are going, yeah, I'm going through it and I'm just going to keep doing what I want to do. So thank you for being so open and honest about all that, because I think it's just so useful. That's amazing. Thank you so much, all three of you.